make sure you're doing the type of work that you really enjoy, because there are those really horrible, tough days where everything just feels like it's falling apart. And if you don't really love the type of work and the job you're doing, then that is 10 times harder. So
we're certainly seeing a lot of pressure on employers at the minute with the rise in the minimum wage for apprentices. That's gone up to, I think, £8 now, where it was even only 3 or 4 years ago, you could pay down to sort of £3 or £4 an hour, which helped the employer out with that initial period.
If you're looking back now and you wish somebody had told you like 1 or 2 bits of advice, A, setting up your business, and B, to run it, what have they got to watch out for?
You're not taught that. You're taught how to be a really good sparky or plumbing heat engineer or whatever, but you're not taught about how to really run that business. And I think most of us just muddle through and learn by
losing money.
Losing money, and then hopefully not enough to squash the business.
So we're back with another Trade Legends podcast, and we have 3 guests on tonight. So we are spoilt for choice, and we have some top tier people on. You're going to tell me you're not, but you are. It's a big brand.
I'll take that.
It's a big brand. Adam from Nerrad, and we've also got Mark. Mark, how would you present yourself? Is Apprentice 121?
Yeah, Apprentice 121, and also Powersonic Limited.
Powersonic Limited, and then we've got Sam from Oval Renewables.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So Sam is going to start tonight because Adam's a bit...
I ducked out.
He's trying to get his best side on the camera, ladies and gentlemen. So
Yeah.
we're going to start with you, Sam. And what we try and do on the podcast is we like to sort of take you back, obviously not to when you're 3 years old. I always knew I was going to be a spark, or I was going to be into this, whatever. But just sort of give us your background history of, like, you left school, what did you go and do? Did you train in anything first?
Yeah.
And how you sort of got to be here, and talk us through that journey of what you do and what it is that you do now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was pretty good at school, to be fair. I got good grades and everything like that, but I never really knew what I wanted to do. My dad is a joiner, my uncle's a plumber, so we had quite a big trades background, but I think after working with Dad on Sundays, in holidays and all the rest of it, I was like, I definitely don't want to be a joiner. That's not for me. I don't want him standing over my shoulder.
Didn't think about the plumbing either.
No, too much. I was looking at it thinking, I might want to do something else, but I was just kind of working my way through school and didn't really know exactly which way I wanted to go, and it kind of got to the point where sixth form was coming and it was like, right, what do you want to study? And I felt like I was just on this conveyor belt into being pushed towards uni, and I got the grades to be able to do stuff like that. I felt like I could do it, but I didn't really have like a target of what I wanted to get a qualification in. And then and my dad was very much, go and get something with your hands like he did and did well out of. So he took me to an open day at a electrical college just down the road from us, and I went in there and everyone was kind of being treated like an adult, and obviously at that point I'm still pretty young. I'm thinking this is awesome. I'm being able to build things. School, yeah. It was like a different world, and got kind of the bug for it there. And I thought, like my dad said, if you don't like it, you can go and do uni in a couple of years. So it wasn't as strict a kind of you have to turn left or right. I was kind of thinking, well, I'll try this, and if I don't like it and I want to do something at uni, I can always go and do that later on. But just got the bug for it when I started the college side of things at this. It was JTL training, and the issue I had though is I left it so late that you had to be employed to be enrolled. And so I don't know if this was just my dad trying to get the £1,000 grant that you got or what. I don't know, maybe throwing him under the bus. But he basically said, Dad. Yeah, sorry, Dad. I enrolled with him to get me basically this employed status, but I was putting like stud walls up on an electrical apprenticeship for like the first 6 months because a bit like it is now, and Mark knows a lot more about this in terms of the apprentice side of things, it was quite hard to find someone to give you that first chance. And so it took us kind of 6 months between myself and the college trying to find me a placement. I ended up getting a really good placement in the end, but I felt like a bit of a fraud at college because everyone was talking about, how they were first fixing this house or doing whatever, and I was like just in the corner thinking, oh God, I was putting some plasterboard on a wall and stuff. But it was still good training in terms of knowing how a build goes together and everything. So fast forward all through that, the company that I worked for went into renewables during the feed-in tariff era, where literally there was solar panels springing up everywhere. So I was still, a teenager, just doing what I'm told kind of thing. And I just really got the bug for generating your own power. Like literally, you install something, turn it on, and then that home is no longer buying any energy from the grid. There weren't really batteries back then, but you kind of got to this point where I was like, people, even though they bought a system, a solar panel system, they didn't really understand that literally as soon as I turn the isolator on, they are now generating their own power, and at that point getting paid really handsomely from Ofgem for it. And
not anymore.
No, not anymore. But they're still saving an awful lot. Yeah. But it was almost, me and Matt were chatting about it on the way up here. Like it was almost one of them schemes that was true, but it was like too good to be true. It was it was unreal, and so I got the bug for it there, and then the feed-in tariff, we call it the solar coaster because it was up and down, left and right, and people getting made redundant. And the company I worked for ended up shutting down towards the end of the feed-in tariff side of things, just had enough of it. And so I took my redundancy, only got $3,000 redundancy, and thought I'll roll the dice with that $3,000 that I didn't have before and set up my own company. And like 3, 4, 5 years. No, was it 2020 we set up? So yeah, so it's like 5, 6 years.
Just in COVID as well.
Yeah, it was like just before all of that, and it was I'd been self-employed a little bit of time before that, but the real proper Oval Renewables Limited was set up in 2020, and it was like, right, now it's COVID, great.
So what are you thinking there? Because I mean, it's hard enough to set up a business like normal time. And you've gone out, you think, right, I'm spending that $3,000, I'm going for it, and then all of a sudden, COVID hits. Because I mean, trying to generate business, during COVID, if you're not already sort of semi-established and, I don't know, your social media's already took off, like, what are you thinking at this point then?
Well, part of me, I was thinking I'm lucky to a degree not to have a massive team of people, because it would be, at that point, there was myself and Ollie, one of the subbies that was working with me pretty much full-time, and later on in his career and the business's life, he came on as an employee. But I felt quite lucky that it would be different now when there's like 8 of us and having to like furlough and all that stress of of all of that. But I think just trades in general, we all had very similar worries in terms of how do we actually go into people's houses, and because it's not something digital we can just do to generate income. So it was a bit worrying, as it was probably for a lot of people. But part of me felt, well, I was a bit more worried for family with all of the COVID stuff flying about and not really knowing what was happening. So it was worrying, but I equally felt quite happy that I didn't have a massive team that I was having to manage at that point as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you start your business, and I presume obviously primarily solar.
Yeah, solar, battery, EV chargers, all of that. Yeah. So
because I mean, obviously now when I look at sort of renewables, like it's big business, isn't it? And I remember back in that time trying to actually tell a couple of Sparkies that I knew, like, look, you need to start looking at EV chargers and batteries outside. Obviously our business was batteries. I mean, how much has the industry changed now compared to when you first start, even in that 5-year period, and like the advancements with the technology, obviously the how much energy you can convert, all the batteries, how much storage you've got with the batteries and stuff like that. How much has it changed since you've
massive. I mean, from when I was, if I go right the way back to when we were doing the feed-in tariff work, when I was an apprentice, and there was no real such thing as batteries. It was as in like home storage batteries, like big lead acid batteries, if you wanted anything like that. But no one was really getting that. So it was all just
gel lead acid batteries are the worst.
Yeah,
the worst.
And we did a few projects with them, and it was just like, these are, you'd never have this.
Because if you let them fully discharge, they don't tend to work again.
They're just, and you don't really get any energy density out of it. So it's but it was where we've come from. Certainly just on the panel side of things, going from our standard panel when I was an apprentice was like a 250 watt panel. I remember 180 watt panels, and now we're up at like 500 watt panels. They're slightly bigger in terms of the frame size, but the amount of output you can actually put onto a property now that has a fairly small roof space is unreal. And the battery side of things has opened up all these new areas in terms of buying and selling power back to the grid. Obviously storing the power for your own self-consumption as well. And it's weird how now the solar for a lot of people is almost like a bit of a secondary thing sometimes, and the battery is the real key element that they love, because obviously gives them in some cases it gives them like a whole home backup system as well, where if they lose the power to their property, and then they don't really notice because the battery kicks in and starts running the house for them. So it's the advancement of it all and the whole EV charging advancement and everything like that has been good, and it's really interesting now to see how popular it is, because I've been lucky enough to be in it from when it was a little bit obscure after the feed-in tariff ended, but before it was kind of popular again. There was like this dead zone where there was like a few of us knocking around that really had a passion for it, that were kind of getting by, fitting solar and stuff for people that were interested in it and maintaining systems that were failing. But now it's kind of picked back up again. It's an upward part of the solar coaster, really. So that's where we are at the minute.
Yeah. Because I mean, the other thing that I noticed was you get big players like Octopus, obviously, who are doing the, feed it back in from the batteries and all that sort of stuff. But then you get them doing installs as well now, and I know this is like
it's like a trigger warning, this, isn't it?
Yeah. So I have to talk about it because it's sort of, it's good in one sense because the industry is obviously growing, but then it's bad in another sense. So it's sort of like, what's your take on stuff like this? Because I can't remember which plumbing boiler company was it? Was it Worcester Box?
Went with Boxed.
That was doing similar thing, basically undercutting all the
all
the people with boilers, and I feel like it's a similar thing in the electrical side, and you hear of the horror stories of some of these as well, where you think, and I'm not, before Octopus start trying to take me to court for anything, but I just feel like it's one of those things. Like everybody now is going to be looking more to renew, especially all the stuff going on with the oil price and all that sort of stuff, and the energy cap and stuff. People are going to start looking more towards that, and it should be that it's almost in essence mandated. I know new build homes you've got to have solar on there, but battery and energy storage, you've got EV chargers. So it's just sort of what's your take then really on
the whole
that sort of stuff?
The Octopus thing is, the market is an open market for a reason, and competition is good. I think there's an element of whether or not that ends up, I'm not saying it's at this point now, whether or not that ends up being unfair, sort of unfair strategies that they employ with having control of the smart meters and everything else. I'm not saying that's where we're at now, but that does worry me slightly. But I think it has to be an open market so that the competition is there. But I think one of the issues that anyone that fits solar PV battery storage is that our installation companies make their money from doing the install, whereas I feel like some of these big companies, maybe they get their money from bringing people onto their tariff, or locking that customer into having that battery system, that solar system locked there to their energy provider for a period of time. But it's not unheard of. Like during the feed-in tariff era, I remember British Gas and Eon and all that lot was starting to fit solar. So it's not something we haven't seen before. It's just a newer version of it with the whole battery side of things. So the other side of it that's a little bit worrying is that these big companies tend to hoover up a lot of the quote-unquote simple jobs, because those simple jobs fit to their rigid kind of pricing structure as to how much a solar and battery system cost. So then independent installers like myself and Mark and loads of other people out there end up getting all the ones that are really tough because
they don't want to do them.
Yeah, they don't want to do them, and that's fine. But it's nice to have some of the simple jobs as well sometimes, because you can't
Piss
go
off, Octopus.
Yeah, well, you said that. I didn't say that.
Well, they're never going to sponsor us somewhere, are they?
Yeah, no. So competition is there, but I do feel like we may end up straying into if it's fair competition in the end. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a lot of these EV charger installs. We can't even entertain it because the pricing that they offer it at, it's like.
And is that do you think because they're getting better deals on multiple chargers, so they've got more buying power in that, or is that literally just like you say?
I think there is an element of that. I think it's more that they're trying to get people onto their tariffs and things, which I don't know if I fully believe that, because a lot of people choose the Octopus tariffs anyway. But the maths has to math a lot of the time, and you kind of think, well, if a charge costs this much, no matter how quick you do it, you might be able to shave an hour off if you're really, really quick. But if you take time and you care about the job, it's going to take this many hours. So, like, you can put a cost to each one of those bits, and then you have to make a profit as well. And profit seems to be, like, in a trades world, a little bit of a dirty word. But I'm like, we chat about it all the time, don't we, Mark? It's like, as a company, you have to make profit. I'm like, if I total my charger costs...
Unless Rachel Reeves is looking. I'll make nothing. Make nothing, Rach.
But you kind of like, if the charger costs this, the cable costs that, the labour costs that, the travel costs that, and my margin is that, and it comes out at 1,500 quid. How are they doing it at £900? It's like there's you know, you can if we have to say 1,500 quid and there's someone else at 1,400, someone else 1,800, you kind of go, well, yeah, we're thereabouts the same. But because it's so different, you kind of think, well, is there a different motive as to why that pricing is happening like that? But
like in my mind, because even if they went onto a tariff for a year, like, are they making that much profit for a year contract?
I don't know. I mean, they'll probably get a decent chunk out of being able to help load balance the grid and everything. Because a lot of the smart tariffs that are out there tend to set their own schedule as to when the car charges. So whether or not, I don't know enough about that, the sort of grid side of it to really comment on it in depth. But from what I have heard is that if an energy provider can remove load at certain times of the day when it's peak time, then they can get effectively rebates back and or discounted pricing. So they're probably just leveraging that, being able to go, right, well, instead of Sam's car charging at 9 p.m, we'll charge it at 10 p.m. when we can move loads around and things like that. So they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. So there must be something that they're able to benefit from doing it. And fair play, that you have an energy company that can do that. If that's helping us load balance the grid, have more people have heat pumps and solar and battery, then happy days. It's the bit that I think really disturbs a lot of installers is that we can't price at that price and make money from the install. And so it's kind of like, well, what's the point in even offering EV charging?
I presume they've got their own certified installers, don't they?
I think they've got certified installers, but I think they've got their own ones on the road as well. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those that's seen as an easy install with an outdoor fuse board here, and then just put a bit of cable in there, and there you go. But how long is that going to last in those elements, in that environment? And that's where, when you get someone that really cares about a job, and it could be something different from an EV charger, could be anything, could be plumbing and heating, could be a standard electrical fuse board upgrade. When you have someone that really cares about what they do, they take into account how your home's going to expand, how your family's going to expand, all this other sort of stuff, and go, well, cable routes, where's the best cable route for you? Might take us an extra half a day to do it, but is that going to, be better for you in terms of damage or a future extension or all these other sorts of things? When you go to more of the...
A bit like a Sky TV install.
Yeah, well, just drill it wherever.
Straight through the wall.
That's the risk that I suppose you take if you go for some of the big players that just kind of have like a big pricing matrix and go, well, you fit into category 1, Mrs. Smith, so you're a £900 install, and we'll just put the cable the shortest route. Whereas it just comes back down to basics, talking to people about what their expectations are and what they feel like is the best install for them. And then you, as a professional electrician, plumbing, heating engineer, aircon guy, whatever, you're able to then install and use all your knowledge to make that a really good, clean install that is going to be maintainable and to regulations.
So I'm going to bring Mark in for a little bit here, because obviously you mentioned before being an apprentice, trying to find work. Like, we have so many apprentices that come through asking, like, what do I do? Who do I contact? Obviously, I'll try and push people through to pages like yours. But what would you say to somebody then that wants to get into the renewable side, not just the general electric side, the renewable side? Because you obviously started out and you've moved into this, and that's where you've ended up. How would you tell them to get into it? I mean, you'll know more about, things that there are that people can go to and get help with and stuff like that.
I think for me, if I was doing it all again now, I would obviously social media is a big one now, but there's certain bits you can't skip. Like, you need to try and get on with somebody that's doing the type of work that you're interested in. So that's the same as when I was an apprentice. I needed to try and find someone that was an electrician. So I think it's kind of, now that social media is bigger than when I did it, you've got a bit more choice as to, you can see what people are doing beforehand. Like, when I walked into my apprenticeship, I didn't know to a degree what I was going to be doing, whereas at least now you can kind of stalk some of these companies to see what sort of work they're doing. So that bit, unfortunately, I can't offer anything that is going to make that bit really easy, because that's still, no matter if you're doing it now or when I did it.
Is there more apprenticeships available now, or is there less than there was 5 years ago? Because I feel like there's less.
Stats are showing that they're growing in the electrical industry in terms of apprenticeship enrolments, but I think those numbers are skewed somewhat because that's not people in employment. Kind of play around with some of those figures, and we're certainly seeing a lot of pressure on employers at the minute with the rise in the minimum wage for apprentices. That's gone up to I think £8 now, where it was even only 3 or 4 years ago you could pay down to sort of £3 or £4 an hour, which helped the employer out with that initial period of maybe 6 months to a year where you've got a drain on your resources, because it is a hard learning curve for a young person coming into a business. They're often lacking in confidence, and there's the life skills element that we build into them as well as employers. So I think there is a lot of pressure on especially smaller companies to take on apprentices. So we are seeing that shrink away, unfortunately, and it's just getting worse as April comes. I think it's changing again with some of the tax allowances. A lot of the grants and things that were paid to employers as well. You were saying about your dad getting £1,000 through COVID, that was up to £4,000. Now again, it's back down at 1,000, but again, it's paid at I think £500 you get in the first 6 months, and then the other one is at the end of a year. And you know the costs around that higher now, that could be maybe £15,000-16,000 a year for a small company. You know, it's not scratching the surface, is it? So there's a big
everything's
pressure.
gone up. Everything's gone up as well now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always, have this conversation with people when I'm on, because obviously the Labour government wants to build 2 million homes, and it's like, when you're talking about stuff like that, which I didn't know about, it's like, there's no way that the numbers are going to keep increasing. People are going to think, well, actually, it's costing me a fortune. I've got to be competitive. Materials high. There's people like Octopus who are trying to bastardise the market. Where do I go with this? And it's just going to mean less apprenticeships.
Exactly. I mean, I shared some content a while ago that I think the training mechanism is broken, and I had some pushback from lecturers that it was kind of calling them out a bit, but it was nothing about the lecturers. The training mechanism involves the learner, the lecturer, training provider and the employer. And I think employers just don't get anything like enough support in that through central government funding. It's all sort of pointed at the training provider, and there's no real incentive there or support for those people in that first year or so where it's really critical. After that point, the apprentice becomes more useful in helping you generate revenue. They're kind of covering the costs of themselves in the business. It's really just that initial step. If they could do something there, and maybe allocate the funding for a lot of the people who are on these full-time courses.
Like forward load the funding more
Yeah,
so.
exactly. So there's a lot of students at college who are on full-time study courses, younger people. So they're sent in every day of the week to college, and that is funded by taxpayers at the end of the day. I think it's like £25,000 a year. If they allocated a portion of that towards employers and got these people on apprenticeships instead, so these are full-time level 2, level 3 students wanting to be electricians, and at the end of that process they can't then find the work experience they need to complete their MVQs, and a lot of those people just drop away. It's like a 30% success rate in that model. So I think if they looked at some of that funding, put that at employers, that success rate would rise. But
could they not do something? I know, obviously, like I'm talking about student loans here, which are just ridiculous, but could they not do something where they forward load the payment to the employer, and then towards the end of their apprenticeship, their employment, they start paying some of that back to the government? So it's sort of like they recoup a little bit of it on the back end when somebody's
terrified of people robbing them, I suppose. But
it's an idea. I think there's all sorts of out of the box thinking that is needed around education, because it's just not working at the minute. The stats with it all speak 1,000 stories really, and I get the same messages from loads of young people desperate to find work that happened back in 2020, and those messages are still coming through now, and we're nothing like able to help really is the short story. We give all the good advice that get yourself a social media profile, get a CV on the wholesale counter, reach out through, in our world of electrical, the CPS registers to all those local contractors and see if there's a position. Have a good attitude, do as much CPD as you can, but fundamentally the core problem isn't the young persons and not doing the effort that they need to make. It is in the actual job roles out there. They're just not there.
Yeah, because I still remember we did a reel ages ago where it was, I think James from Royal Spa Decoration, he's a painter decorator, and he was talking about the cost to him of hiring an apprentice. And I remember on TikTok, everyone in the comments were, I only get paid £4 an hour, like it doesn't cost you anything really to have me. And then obviously, like you've said, people aren't really repaying that because you're investing so much time and effort into them in the first couple of years to learn, go back, check their work, or pick them up in the morning, or like whatever it is, clothe them, give them tools, whatever you've got to spend the money on. And I just feel like there's got to be a better way of doing things. Like I had a conversation with Kev and Russ saying, well, why isn't it the last 2 GCSE years, if you're not academic, you still try and get your maths and English, but then the schools split into like a vocational side. So
big part of that with schools. I mean, you had that with your journey through to university. I had the same experience. School pushed me towards A-levels and uni. That was never really what I was interested in. I think there is a big disconnect from school just towards academic stuff still, rather than considering trades.
Because you're paying the money.
Pretty much, isn't it?
I got told to go into the army. That was the only thing. The careers advice guy looked at me and he was like, I think the only thing for you is the army. And I was like, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it was never pushed to me at school to do a trade. It was always frowned upon, looked down upon. But then they're expecting to build all these homes, and
I think it's the quality that they want them built as well. I think this is the thing we seem to be obsessed with. Like, is how fast can we do things? How much can we do it? It's like, hang on, when you're looking for a property now, a lot of people are really set against buying a new build because they hear all these horror stories, and you've had the snagging list guy on and all this sort of thing. It's like, you see all these horror stories. When you get an ex-council house, you're like, oh, it's all solid walls, and it's been built properly. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but certainly my house was an ex-council house, and it's every single wall is solid, nothing's moved, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, let's have a target of X amount of million of properties, but let's be really strict on the quality, because what's the point in building 2 million properties that don't integrate any sort of futuristic technology, are built where they need major works over the next 5 years. Like, what's the point in doing that? I'd rather miss the target, but let's build quality.
The flip side on that, though, is like you said, with the government, like tax, NI, pension contributions, everything going up, even like the cost of materials. These big developers now have been so used to having wider profit margins, and then some developments now they haven't built on there because it's not viable for them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is, because it's sort of like you say. I would much rather not have all these red brick houses and just estates, and actually integrate them into, like, if they've just been bolted onto the edge of a town somewhere, so it looks as if it's in keeping with the rest of it. But trying to do that and then actually bring people through when costs are so high, I don't know what the solution is with it.
It's getting a better quality apprenticeship. So if you've got a good quality installer that is doing a good quality job, then surely that apprenticeship is going to be better quality, because you've been shown how to do things. The time is there to show people. Like, when I think back to my apprenticeship, if I'd, like, my boss spent ages with me, saying, no, Sam, don't click it like that for the 100th time, when you're not, rather than just kind of going, oh, just get it slung in because we've got another 3 plots to do today. It's like, okay, it's all about quality, and we seem to just miss that all the time.
I mean, have you ever had any MPs or anybody contact you about the type of work that you do, to say, how can we implement this? Have you ever had?
Yeah, there's been conversations over the years, and we do have people in industry, the electrical industry. We've got an organisation called TESP, the Electrotechnical Skills Partnership, and they do a lot with politicians to try and direct policy change. And the ECA, Andrew Eldred, won't mind me mentioning him, he's doing some work around all of that as well, to try and encourage them to set some support towards employers to encourage the prospect of hiring apprentices. But we seem to have this thirst, like you said, everything wants to be done really quickly. It's the same in training. We sort of short-coursed a lot of our training over the last 20 years. It's become an electrician in 5 weeks, then 5 days, and all the rest of it. And that kind of has caused us a problem.
I'd shit myself if somebody said I'd passed the course in 5 days.
It was a thing.
In my house.
It was a thing, and now a lot of the CPSs in our industry are turning around and saying, well, actually, those qualifications aren't suitable anymore. People need to do some upskilling and more training. And the irony with that is they sold them the courses in the first place to enter the sector. And there's a lot of talk in construction and trades around mental health and people struggling with things, and now there's all of that being pushed back onto a large volume of people who've been working in the industry for maybe 20 years, been assessed every year from those CPS providers and evidence of work they've been delivering, and all of a sudden they've got to fork out thousands of pounds to do an AM2 and an MVQ because the people who told them it was okay are now saying it's not. I think the messaging is one thing, but the actions around some of the stuff that happens is entirely another.
I mean, what's the solution then? Because you do your own training and stuff now, don't you? Certified training.
Yeah, we do. So one of the things we tried to develop was our own training space through the course of doing Apprentice 1-to-1. So back in 2020, that was very much set up to link people into employment. There was a big layoff of apprentices, and while I was bored sat in my back garden with not a great deal to do and the kids driving me mad, I was like, what can I do that's
Get me out of the house.
Yeah, so we started doing bits of that. So that was just linking people towards employers who I knew were doing things like the Nightingale hospitals and stuff as it was back then, or work around rail and stuff that didn't stop. And it kind of moved forward, opened my eyes to some of the mess that was out there with training. I was totally unaware of it all, to be honest. As an employee just working in the electrical sector, I had no idea. And you start to hear these things, and it's like, well, what can we do about it? And the messaging coming back towards me was it's easy to be a mouthpiece on the sidelines where you're just casting your opinions about what we're doing wrong, rather than somebody who's actually involved with it. So we started our own little training space that we had, very much Heath Robinson ad hoc kind of setup, and then now we've got this proper space that Sam's been and seen and helped out with as well, that we're trying to bring forward as we speak for accredited training. My issue with that at the minute is that I don't think some of the accredited training is anything like as good enough as it should be. So we're bringing forward some of our own training that's standing on its own merits alongside other installers, where we bring people like Sam in, or like Ollie and Magic Mike, who I'm sure will be watching this, who comes in and does some training with us as well, that is very much installer led. And whilst it's not accredited or CPD endorsed or any of the rest of that, we're hoping it's really useful, because we've just entered the kind of renewable industry as solar installers in my day job maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We went through all those training courses and we felt nothing like capable enough after that to be confident going onto roofs and homes of the UK fitting this stuff.
But why don't these bodies that sort of govern, because I know electrical is highly regulated compared to some industries, why aren't they speaking to you guys and coming up with like extra standards or extra layers of like education for people, so it's a set standard and everybody has to go through that stuff? Why isn't this?
They do in theory. So there is committees that help develop a lot of the apprenticeship frameworks. I was on the one that brought the recent electrical electrician out again. However, there's not a lot of engagement with employers in that process. I think I was the only one from I would call a small company. There was some of the bigger ones who were taking part, like British Gas and stuff. But more small employers need to be aware of that and get involved in the development of those courses. And again, has been a training provider now, we can input into the likes of EAL and City and Guilds with suggestions for how these courses might be developed and changed. So it's having a foot in the door there, if you like, to at least be able to offer an opinion back towards them to develop that. And I think very much like you've done here with your podcast studio, build it and they will come. So that's kind of what we're doing with our training centre. We're building something that we think is how training should be delivered. And we've still got to deliver on that, by the way. We've not actually really got going with it properly. And show how things can be done the right way, the value we can offer to people wanting to work in this industry, and hope that other training providers see that and try and copy it in a way. We're not trying to silo this stuff with our own unique USP to train everybody in the country. That'd be ridiculous. We want to try and improve standards and outcomes for other people.
I mean, I get what you're trying to do. I've got a feeling that other people won't try and copy you because they'll look and get a bit green-eye monster about stuff, rather than trying to say, how can we help you improve, which is going to help us improve. I mean, electrical industry, so you where you are now and what's going on, where do you see some of this stuff going in like 5 years' time? Like where do you see like renewables? Where do you see the stuff with apprentices? Like,
well, I think
where do you see the industry going?
The renewable side of things, I think it'll just keep growing, and obviously we're in quite an unstable world at the minute, and I think taking sort of ownership of your own energy, even if you're only 50% reliant on what you've installed because of budget or roof space or whatever, that's 50%. You're not reliant on oil prices going up and everything else. So you're kind of limiting your exposure to some of this stuff. So it depends on what the world does to a degree, and hopefully it gets better than what it is now. But it's I think the renewable side is definitely going to continue to grow, no matter what colours the government is or what combinations the government are. I think the kind of in the UK we're pretty good in terms of the trajectory has been set in general to be moving towards that renewable future. It might flip flop a little bit, but it's kind of mainly it's set. The one thing that I wanted to just expand on from what Mark said, and we've had conversations about this, is in terms of the training, is I've felt, even just in my short career of being in business and being an electrician, that there's been a shift of the certificate you get from training being more important than the training you get. Right. So like when you go on a solar PV course, because we have to do ours every 5 years and everything like that, the certificate out of the other end tends to be what people are there for in terms of the training, so that they can then go and start installing this stuff. Whereas for me, training is more about the knowledge you pick up and the stuff you can do with your hands and the calculations you can do after the course. the piece of paper is just something that you
Secondary,
get because
yeah.
you've done it. Whereas when we've spoken about this, I think that's one of Mark's main aims with his installer-led training is actually to flip that back so that the skills you take away from that training is actually the main bit, and the piece of paper is just thanks for attending kind of thing. So hopefully, you know, what Mark's doing will maybe make people think about that a little bit more, because, you know, you're going on that course to be able to fit solar panels in, you know, in my case, and a lot of the time, like was Mark's experience and mine and many others, you walk away from that thinking, oh my God, I've got an install on Monday and I've got no idea how to properly fit it. I've got a piece of paper to say I can, but God, how am I going to actually do it? And I think that again is a bit of a letdown when you go and spend your money on this training. You kind of walk away with a piece of paper, but not necessarily all the skills that you need to do it.
I mean, for me, I don't know about anybody listening or watching, like, if you can't get an apprenticeship in the first place, and then you go and start doing these courses and still feel like you can't do the job, it's like that'd worry me.
It's a challenge. I think it's actually a really exciting one. So I view this differently. I think the next 5 or 10 years for anyone in construction trades are going to be fantastic, and I think for electricians, especially with the electrification of everything, it's really positive for us. I think there's an opportunity there to get the training right and have people in high skilled roles who know what they're doing, are confident in doing what they're doing, earning good money. I think there is a massive upside for us, and sometimes we look a little bit harshly on ourselves, and certainly over the last 15, 20 years we have made mistakes in the way we've allowed people to enter our industry, the training that's been delivered and some of the things around that. But going forwards, if we all really focus in on it, there's a lot of people who can do some really good work and have great career prospects. You look at AI coming into the world now and decimating working opportunities for lots of people. I think the opposite is true for us. We were still working out in trades and construction. We can use that to help our business, and we were talking about that on the way here with our obsession with AI at the moment and apps that you can develop. So I think there is a real positive element underneath it all, but we've got to really structure what we're doing going forward to be different to what's happened the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Well, I'm going to go back for you now and get you to sort of talk us through, because obviously your journey is different to Sam's, and just give us your background, because you might have gone to college, might not have been academic, whatever it was. Give us your background as to how you got to doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's a long time to remember at my age, going back that far, to be fair. Got the wrinkles to prove it. But yeah, similar sort of thing at school. I was pretty decent, to be fair. And again, the usual message in a school environment is to point you towards A-levels and university. And I had that. I managed to tolerate sixth form, I think, for 6 weeks, where I just got sick of it. 'Cause it was
What did you do? Oh, it always amazes me when
I think I did maths, chemistry, I think psychology.
You must have been all right at school.
Yeah, well, I didn't enjoy that process. It was very much like still being at school, so I kind of left that after 6 weeks. And same sort of thing, I was around family members who were in trades and construction. My granddad was always amongst motorbikes, and he was maintenance with shipping, and my other granddad worked in a boiler manufacturing company for Ideal Boilers in Hull, and kind of had that element pushed in me tinkering on a weekend. So I went around the colleges and I thought electrical looks quite interesting, and
took one look in the plumbing room.
Yeah, well, nobody wants to be a plumber, do they?
I'm not a plumber.
So yeah, that was kind of it. In through the schooling to Hull College, worked through that process there, and then went out into industry. I think I was in employed roles till I was about 24, and different. Sam, I did get made redundant through a few of those job roles, but not to the point I started my own business. What actually happened with me was, unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was 24 years old, and kind of that led me to reevaluate things. Even at that young age in my life, there was a bit of money that came through his passing towards me that allowed me to start my own business. That was called Power Sonic, and that is named after Power Rangers and Sonic the Hedgehog from my sons at the time.
It's a good name, though.
Yeah, Matty and Nathan, who were young kids back then, but they're now 27 and 24 and work in the business, or run the business, if you believe what they say, today. So that's been quite a nice story. They actually named it, and now they work in it. And yeah, that was kind of an experience for me. It's quite young, 24, 25 years old, starting a business, probably similar age to what you were, Sam, to be fair. And we have no training in how to run a business as tradespeople. We qualify in the craft, and that was a huge learning journey for me through that. Made lots of mistakes. That's
another thing with the apprenticeships, is a lot of people are reluctant to take them on because they think it's paperwork again, or it's extra work on top of the actual manual work that I'm doing. I mean, what's the solution there? We're trying to educate people? Is that back to school again, learn finance, a little bit of business, or is that when you go to college rather than it all just being vocational, you've got to learn?
I think there should be elements of that in college where we're taught a bit around business and how to develop that, because so many of us do end up in these micro companies that might only be 1 or 2 people, but you could end up working in that for 30, 40 years. And to avoid those basic mistakes, I mean, someone like yourself who's been in a big business, it would seem really basic, but to us, we don't know what we don't know, and we're kind of winging it a little bit with that as we kind of step out into the world of business, running our own small companies. And yeah, I would have certainly found that helpful through my journey in education to have had at least some reference towards it. And yeah, there are some burdens and roadblocks with hiring apprentices to do with the paperwork and the admin side of it, the payroll stuff that lots of people just don't want to even get involved with. And I think there should be some education pieces around that, because it's not as complex really once you do get through that initial head scratching moment with it. But yeah, that was a difficulty for me in the formation of my company. It kind of grew and then shrunk and grew and shrunk, and that was really me learning through experience of all the things you shouldn't be doing to get to the stage where we are now. And you know, our pivot to renewables was led by my kids, because they're very much into that more than I was. I was quite happy changing distribution boards and wiring up commercial premises and stuff. I would have done that to the dawn of time, to be fair, but they led us towards this. And you know, the finances around that are way bigger. Sam will know with his business, the cost of the kit is so expensive. The numbers all seem more bigger and more daunting. Your wholesaler bills go from maybe being £10,000 a month to maybe being up towards £100,000, even just servicing a small-ish client base. So you have all of that come towards you as well, and it's understanding as a small business owner still how to navigate that. Yeah, it is a tricky one, and I think that's why a lot of these companies who do get going in renewables ultimately fail, because they haven't had that education piece. I don't think they set out to do a bad job or fail in the company they're creating. That solar coaster element is just from a lack of knowledge a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's a massive jump, isn't it, from 10,000 to 80,000. And then again, people with no sort of finance or business knowledge, like having to deal with a wholesaler account like that, making sure that they're paying off.
Yeah, there's the VAT and tax element to it as well, so we're kind of forward-loading all of VAT for consumers, so you end up with a lot of what...
And then the quarterly tax returns.
Yeah, it all builds up, and it can be very, very scary for people moving into renewables. And I think with the growth of that now, a lot of these small companies are going to have to. It's the way it's going, so there does need to be a bit of support and help. And I think the CPS providers could do more with that, to be fair. The likes of the NIC and NAPIT, they could really step up and help some of their members with that stuff.
Yeah, it's a massive step when you start dealing with those sort of numbers. When I got my £3,000 redundancy, I couldn't go straight into renewables, because I kind of knew roughly how much these things cost after doing bits of paperwork at the place that I was working before, and I'm thinking, I ain't got the bank to be like pushing out a 10 grand job, whilst also running a company. And I'd hustled on the side, like when I was younger, like selling kindling to Costco's and stuff like that. So I kind of always had that like drive to make money, like entrepreneurship kind of mind space.
That's stressful though as well. Is when you're, say you've got multiple members of staff and you've got those bills coming in all the time from the wholesaler. It's a stressful thing that nobody really sort of prepares you for, is it?
Yeah, when there's like an extra couple of zeros on the end of it to what you're normally like doing a DB change, and you're like, it's £100,000. What am I going to? So
that's another thing. Is also going through all those invoices that you've got from the wholesaler to double check, because mistakes get made occasionally with those places where I've seen.
Without a doubt.
Call it mistakes.
You told me that was £6,000.
Yeah. Oh, it's stressful, but it's a massive learning curve, and something unfortunately we have to go through.
So you both got your own business. What advice then would you give if you were looking back now and you wish somebody had told you like 1 or 2 bits of advice for A, setting up your business, and B, to run it? What would you tell some? Because no doubt there's probably somebody listening, watching, thinking, right, I'm setting up a renewables business. What have they got to watch out for? Or what's something that you just wish somebody had gone, look, Sam, do this?
Yeah. Well, I think before that, I think for me, I would say, whether it's renewables or something different, is make sure you're doing the type of work that you really enjoy. Because anyone that's in business or anyone that's just in a job, really, there are those really horrible, tough days where everything just feels like it's falling apart. And if you don't really love the type of work and the job you're doing, then that is 10 times harder. So, don't just go into something because you think there's loads and loads of money to be made in it, because there'll be those days when there's absolutely zero money to be made and actually you'll be forking out of your own pocket to do it. I think, but in terms of what I've really learned is probably be really, really clear, and it's boring, but be really clear on your numbers in the business in terms of what is an overhead. Learn some of these basic things that, for example, if you charge £300 a day, £250 a day, whatever it is you're charging, have you factored in what the company needs to make as well as what you want to make? Because it's a separate entity, and all these sorts of things where it's like, don't let necessarily let the market pressure you into what you should be charging. Try and work out what you need. And then try and leverage the value that you can offer against that. I think
it's different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a one size fits all thing. And so I think for me, I would have gone like, right, Sam, before you start jumping into all this solar stuff and the big numbers flying about, really get down how much did your van cost you? How much did this cost you? People kind of know anecdotally.
People forget to put like even fuel into a quote, and I'm thinking, well, you've got to get to the job and you've got to get back, or you might have to go to a wholesaler to go and collect something. And like real basic things, but this comes back again to no financial training.
Yeah, exactly that. You're not taught that. You're taught how to be a really good sparky or plumbing heat engineer or whatever, but you're not taught about how to really run that business. And I think most of us just muddle through and learn by
losing
money, and then hopefully not enough to squash the business. But yeah, I think knowing your numbers and doing something you really love, then you've got a really good mix there.
Yeah. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, you stole my answer with another numbers one, but definitely to put the effort and time into understanding your numbers, and in that, profit is such a big part. And Andy Cam had a post the other week where he's saying profit for tradespeople is seen as like a dirty thing, whereas if you're a banker or something, you boast about it. It's like, why can't we make profit in construction? It's essential, actually. And the other element is to value your time. So one of the things I really struggled with at the start is I'd be doing like pricing in my own time on a night, running around to wholesalers on a weekend, prepping kits and stuff, and not really charging for that back to the customer. And that just makes you a stressed and tired, miserable person. At the end of the day, you've got to price that element in and make sure you're factoring that into your week-to-week activities. So, yeah, value time, know your numbers, and yeah, just go for it. I think I sat on the fence longer than I really should have done, even though I started when I was 24, 25. Sometimes we can contemplate stuff a little bit longer. If you've got a passion and desire to be in business and be a master of your own demise, as I looked at it back then, and a third time being redundant. This is it, a third time of a company going bust from under you. It's like, well, I might as well be in charge of my own demise with it, and then go for it. There's what's to lose at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough because lots of people are either just starting out, can't get an apprenticeship, or they're sat there probably like you are, procrastinating, thinking. But I always find it's better to procrastinate, do a little bit of research, and then go into it, rather than go into it and then like the whole lot goes to.
I think also there's always in the trade side of things, there's always a load of pressure that you have to start your own company up. When you chat to family members, like, oh, when are you going to set up on your own? Sometimes be happy in the fact that maybe that's
you don't have to
do that.
Yeah.
There's huge value in me.
Rich was like that because he's a subby, Rich Cockline, and he was saying, actually, I don't get any of the stress.
Yeah,
he's like, I've just got to send one invoice in, that's it.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily understand the value of that until you've been on the other side of it, and you go, oh man, because we speak again all the time and go, I just love to have a job. Sometimes you don't have to deal with any of that, but you get that time with your family and everything, and I think there is a massive value. Yes, you haven't got maybe the opportunity to earn as much money, but you've also not necessarily got the stress and also the risk of losing a load of money as well. So I think don't be scared of just being pushing yourself in a career that is working for somebody, but you don't have to all be self-employed.
Yeah,
that's the key thing.
Yeah. Okay, right. I'm going to quickly nip over to you then.
Sure.
You're up now. Your big debut on the camera.
Here we go.
So, Adam, you're from Nerrad Tools.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of. I mean, most people should know.
They should know.
They should know because
still not the biggest though.
Oh, you're big brand, good company.
Good company.
Yeah.
Good company. Could always be bigger.
Oh, well, this is the debate we're having here. These two are like, no, you don't need the stress. But give us a bit of background about the business, how the business came to be. Sort of give us an oversight of what you do, and then also how you came to be with the business.
Sure. Well, these guys will no doubt tell you there's I think every tradesperson has always said, why hasn't somebody done this? Why hasn't somebody done that? And everybody's got an opinion. Well, Nerrad was started by a plumbing and heating engineer called Darren, Darren Chalkley, back in 2008. I think he started importing a couple of bits for himself to use and then selling them to his mates and so on, and that grew to a few more products, and he started growing organically like that. And then it eventually became Nerrad Tools. He started designing his own bits and bobs as well. And he got to a point where he needed to grow, but he needed to grow a bit bigger, a bit faster. So we started looking for.
And was he still working at this time, or?
I think he was. He was doing jobs, doing normal plumbing, heating jobs.
I've got a big respect for that, because Kev Paint Warrior was talking about how he goes home and he's packing his own boxes full of paintbrushes.
It was. I first met him in 2013. I was working for another company and I was doing a trade morning, and it turned out it was a double one with him.
Okay.
So that was.
He was doing them as well. Trade mornings.
Yeah. It was him. The whole company, Nerrad Tools at the time, was him, his partner Michelle, and I think they had a young lad in the stockroom called Toby, who was about 16 at the time, and that was Nerrad Tools. Yeah. Up until about 2014. So I first met him in 2013. Was quite struck by his enthusiasm and his passion for what he did. And I actually left there thinking, I could work for that guy.
He roped you in?
No, that was the thing. I thought I could work for that guy. Quite liked the sound of all that. And then 12 months later, he got investment from Carl Camelling International, CK Tools. And he hired someone else.
Okay.
Not me, I got looked over.
Yeah.
But then I joined him in 2015. Yeah. But the idea...
I hope you told him, why wasn't I signed in 2014?
You know what, he didn't even remember me. Didn't even remember me. I mean, my background was tools anyway, and I'd said that to him at the time, but then he hired someone else, and then I came into it later.
Are they still with the company?
No, that one didn't work out.
I'd wind him up about that.
Yeah, well, I think I might have done. Yeah. No, my background was Rothenberger.
Okay.
I'm from Northampton. Rothenberger were originally from Northampton, Rothenberg, UK at least. Yeah. Literally 10 minutes from my house. And unlike these guys, I didn't do too well in school. I did a year of sixth form, and then was just.
What did you do?
The whole idea for sixth form for me was retaking maths.
Yeah.
And then I just did other things just so I could go.
See, this is where obviously the vocational side I think comes in, because if you were just doing your maths and English and you didn't have RE, history, IT, all this other shit that you'd never use really after leaving school, and you could just focus on your maths and English, I think most people get the C's that they need to get it done.
Yeah. So I still didn't get the C, but there you go. But no, it got to a point where I'm just sitting around the house, and my mum worked for Rothenberger. Yeah. So I think she did about 30 years there in the end. And this was right at the time when Rothenberger launched the original Superfire torch and the Quickfire torch and the gas and so on. So their sales went straight up. So they were looking for someone. It was supposed to be 2 weeks temporary work in the warehouse at Roth. And Mum got on the phone to me, get yourself out of bed. Get yourself down here.
Still watching Neighbours.
Yeah. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. And I was told that the owner, because at the time Rothenberger was not a fully German-owned company. It was, I think it was a controlling share by a UK family, English family.
Okay.
And I remember seeing the owner walking past, and I'd just been told they're looking for a full-time warehouse person. Go and put your name forward. So I went round, I stopped him. I says, "You got a moment?" He says, "Yes." So I've been told you're looking for someone full-time in the warehouse. Is that right? Yes. I said, "If it's okay with yourself, I'd like to apply for the position." He went, "No."
Wow.
All right. He said, "No, the job's yours. You're not applying for anything. The job's yours."
Okay.
So thank God. Yeah, exactly. So I think I've been there 3 times in total at Roth. So for about 2 years the first time, about 2.5 years the second time, and the last time I joined in 2005 and left in 2012. Did something else for 3 years before then, kind of tapping Darren up for a job in Nerrad. Yeah. But the whole point of Nerrad Tools was always to be making things easier for the engineer. If it can be done easier with less stress, a little bit more innovation, then that's going to be the focus of the company.
I mean, is there still a tie-up now with CK? Because they're massive in the electrical.
Well, yeah. I mean, when CK invested, it was always the it was always the thought that they're going to take over the full ownership of the company. Darren, when he started, he wanted to take the company from A to B, not necessarily all the way on to C. And that time came in about 2018 when CK took full ownership. And they still have full ownership. I mean, they have a number of brands, market leaders like CK Tools, they've got CASP, they've got Avit. But we're run as a separate company. So we're in their office, we have our own little customer services area, marketing, admin, but everything else, we use theirs.
Okay.
But then being run separately, they charge us for the time. So the logistics, the warehouse team, they do our picking and packing and send it out, but they charge us for that. Same with the accounts department and all that sort of thing. So it's two definite separate companies. So it's quite a nice position to be in, because we're a relatively smaller company than the competition. We've got the reach of a much bigger company. So it works quite well.
So what's the latest then with Nerrad, and what's changed actually since obviously the full acquisition of the business? Has there been any changes?
Oh yeah, there was a fair amount of changes. Obviously, Darren left the business. Last I heard, he was in California.
Nice.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, it wasn't until somebody became in charge over there. But yeah, so Darren left. His partner Michelle left. Obviously, Nerrad went down to two people, me and another chap called Matt. We got quite large sales areas to begin with, and then we eventually hired someone else from up north, and we started growing organically again, based on turnover and whatnot. But yeah, we had, when Darren was with us, we had a relatively small range. That range has now got a lot bigger. It needs to get a lot bigger still as well. We've brought in a whole load of new products since then. But we've still got the same ethos where, innovation first and foremost. If we can do it better, different, not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of ease of use, then that's what we'll do. But we've also got some of the more, Me Too lines as well.
And just tell us about where people can actually find your products. Which type of places are they in?
Anybody can get us from any merchant. All I need to do is ask for us. We do trade with some of the nationals. We do trade with some of the more national groups as well. Independents and online partners. We're very careful with who we choose online, but we trust everybody we use online.
Any questions, you guys? Because obviously the CK type, I thought maybe.
I don't know an awful lot about the CK side.
Yeah, so it's predominantly plumbing and heating tools, then, is it? Or
We are plumbing and heating tools.
Right,
Yeah. I don't think there's ever going to be a point where we'll venture into an electrical merchant because of the CK tools side.
Right.
Same with them. I'd be a bit disappointed if they started calling on plumbers merchants. They're kind of our own companies, kind of be trying to be a competitor in that respect.
I mean, is there certain bits that say CK do, like, because I know CK got their own lights, and maybe you don't have them, and you put.
Not yet. It's we've got a whole list. I think our NPD list runs at about 27 pages of products that we would like to do. So there's an awful lot to go at, but it's not all going to happen overnight.
And how many products have you got now? Do you know? Or
we are just over 200, about 220, something like that. So not huge. Not huge.
Still a lot, though.
It's still a lot, but they all have to be the right products. We're not just going to go to some one-stop factory and just fill up our basket, if you like.
And what's the one product then? That because most companies have always got one product that they're renowned for. What was the thing that Nerrad was
flagship one? It's still got to be the TapX kit, tap changing kit. That was kind of like Darren's last big roll of the dice. That launched January 2018, and Darren had left the business by March 2018. So that was the last.
And are some of these products still going as well? They've been kept.
Not all the products. I mean, when I first saw Nerrad on the wall in a merchant in 2012, I thought, there's some good stuff here. There's some bits that I'm not that keen on. There's some good stuff. The bits I'm not that keen on are no longer in the business.
They've been shopped.
Yeah, so nice how when like some of the best stuff come out of like some of the best tools come out of like solving that problem. That installer like just goes, if I had this specific tool, then my job would be 10 times easier. It's like a lot of the time I think it's the barrier of knowing how to then get that made, or you're busy in your own life, like how to actually do that. And I think some of the best equipment comes out of an installer trying to fix a problem or speed up a process. Like it's so nice when you get those sort of businesses that are founded on and installers want to make a job easier for themselves and others. It's really nice. That's how how
absolutely.
it is.
And Darren had a thing as well because he'd done it himself. He was approached by other engineers. I've got this idea. What do you think? And he was always very careful not to try and rip people off. He'd said, "Look, I'm not going to talk to you unless you've got some protection for yourself, because otherwise someone else could just run off with the product and whatnot." So have a word with the solicitor, get yourself some patents and whatnot, and then we can have a conversation. But yeah, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. And we still have other people approaching us as well. But we launched. We bought a brand. Our parent company, Carl Cameron International, bought Clipper Core.
Oh yeah.
So that was a heating engineer who'd got himself into a bit of damage. He'd broken his hand trying to take a core off the end of an arbor, trying to split that and so on. And that's 3 months where he wasn't earning any money. So he developed Clipper Core to solve that problem, quick release, dry diamond cores and whatnot.
That's the green colour, isn't it? Clipper
That's
Core?
right, yeah. And he did well with it. But, the guy was very prolific in inventing. So he then eventually sold that side of the business to Carl Cameron to kind of focus on his new invention. So we're running now with Clipper Core as well. So Nerrad and Clipper Core, as far as we go.
It is difficult if you're in the trades to know where to go and get stuff manufactured. It's not
absolutely.
It's not easy.
No, and it can be expensive, very expensive. Most of the Clipper Core is made in the UK.
Yeah, even for us, when I used to get samples, like I get a sample sent over, and it's like originally it's like a 3D printed sample, and then you send it back, and you get like a handmade sample, and then you get like a pre-production sample. Like the process is like 12 to 18 months just to get a product from development to on the boat coming here. Absolutely mental.
Well, I now work with our NPD side a little bit, and I had an idea for like an addition to the TAPEX. It was about 4 years ago, and that is being launched this summer. Well, 2 weeks' time actually. So that's taken 4 years to get from me drawing pictures on a piece of paper, diagrams and whatnot, and sending it in and so on, and probably about 6 different prototypes before getting some of that's ready to launch. Yeah,
and some of the stuff as well that I designed is back in the day they didn't have the tooling to do it, and then you look suddenly and you go and you're digging through stuff and you find it. That's why stuff takes so long sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely mental. So how many people are within the business now? And can you give us a sort of scope of the size of the business? I know, like everybody knows, CK's a big business.
Well, CK's huge. CK's huge. Definite market leaders. We've got.
They've always got a wall and a wholesale, haven't they? CK.
Exactly. And I think we've got 10 people on the road. Guy up north, me in the middle.
Is that just for Nerrad or is that for both brands?
4 in London, bit of both for them. Guy in the southwest, bit of both. Me and Mark up north, just Nerrad. Then we've got 1 in Northern Ireland, bit of both, and 2 in Southern Ireland, bit of both as well.
And how many people work in the business in total?
Nerrad, I think we've got about 10 in total. Yeah. 10, 1, 2, 3.
And CK?
Just under 10. CK, lots.
Yeah.
Lots, yeah. Every time I go to the head office in North Wales, there's people I haven't spotted before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big business.
It's a very big business,
It's a big business. You guys use CK products or?
Yeah, certainly do.
Absolutely.
In the electrical game.
I think it's everyone's first set of screwdrivers, isn't it?
It pretty much is, because like you say, they're in every wholesale branch wherever you go. They've got the screwdrivers and the snips.
You walk into a CEF and it's like
full of it.
Yeah. It's a wall of the one wall, isn't it?
Yeah, you got walking there as an apprentice, don't you? And you kind of go, "Oh my god, I'd love to have all of this."
So that's the target for us as well. Yeah. Whether we'll get there or not, who knows?
Yeah. Who's your main competition then? Is there any? Because I never saw anybody really as a competitor, because everybody had the things that they did really well. There was Lead Lenser that did head torches really well, and aluminium flashlights, or you've had Night Search that did these bigger sort of case lights. Everybody had their thing that was.
Yeah, everyone has good bits and other bits. I think, well, obviously top of the tree is still Rothenberger. I mean, they are still the market leaders in the plumbing tools. But then more, the lower down you've got the Monument, not as big a turnover, but equally as well known. Then Today's Tools, etc. And then you've got other people who come in as well, like a very cheaper brand, Crowbar, more price conscious, if you like.
Yeah.
But then the other brands like Nipex and Baco, etc., you sell through Toolbank.
I was about to say Toolbank because
it's like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, they do like Roughneck and stuff like that, don't they?
Toolbank. Yeah. So we've got to try and compete with all of them. We're not gonna. We never use someone like Toolbank for our ranges. We're going to be independent from that in that respect.
You've got more control over it as well.
Exactly, and more control over the margins and prices, etc.
Yeah. So where does CK see you guys within the overall business? What's the future hold for Nerrad there?
They're investing a lot of money in this all the time still, so we're still growing, and they're taking an active interest. Definitely taking an active interest. There is some crossover with management, etc. So, like their sales director is our managing director, their MD is our CEO, if you like. So there's still crossovers. So there's still an active interest in pursuing what's best for Nerrad, because we're still a very profitable part of the CK umbrella, if you like.
Yeah. Okay. Got any questions?
I was just thinking there, like, I wonder if that was quite daunting for him going into like a partnership with such a monster to start with. You know, going in and getting that investment.
Probably
because it's kind of like that.
I'm always fascinated by how these companies come together, because obviously going through the process myself of selling this place I chatted to so many different people that wanted to buy us, and then eventually went with one. But I'm always, like Nerrad and CK, it's sort of, the crossovers there, but they're two completely different industries.
Yeah.
So I'm always...
I know there was conversations with at least two other businesses. I won't name them. But I think he was quite far down the road with the second company that he was talking to before CK eventually said, look, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
We do this, you do that. It kind of fits. Let's sit down and have a chat.
Yeah.
So it was a good fit, but some of the others I know of, probably not so good. So he made the right choice.
Yeah,
crazy, isn't it?
It's like getting that check through and not knowing if you're going to be able to run it in the way that you wanted to run it, and but that can be a positive thing, I suppose, as well. You might have run it in a certain way that was actually holding things back. So actually having that investment and those other people that are running a bigger business at that time, you're kind of like, well, are they going to show us the way that we should have always been doing it, or is this just like a new chapter for a business? And I think you hear about, we were chatting about it on the way up again, in-store business is getting bought out by bigger firms, and sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. But it's like, I would feel very, it's like your company becomes like you're another child, doesn't it? And you're kind of like, are they going to come in and ruin what I've literally blood, sweat and tears.
I think if you know between the two of you that your final thing is to exit the business and it's a full buyout, then I don't think
I don't think we think about that as installs, do we? We kind of think we'll just be doing this till we're 90. I don't think we ever think about, how does this all end?
That's one thing with trades that I always try and say to people is you've got to have if you're on the tools, especially if you've got your kids in the business and maybe you could step back and do a bit more of the day-to-day stuff, then probably not.
Sound like them already.
probably not so much. But again, that's hard because if it's your baby trying to leave you're like,
I wouldn't do it like that.
Yeah. But there's 10 different ways to do things. But I think everybody that's got that type of business, especially if you're just you on your own, and maybe one other person has got to have some sort of exit to get out of there, because you can't keep being on the tools till you're 65, 70, because your body gives up on you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's such a physical job, isn't it? When you're in whatever trade you're in, and it's like giving that up when you've literally spent your entire career doing it, I think.
And that's the hard thing with paperwork as well, is getting trades to do that, because you just want to be on the tools. That's the fun part.
And with renewables, the paperwork aspect is pretty
massive.
heavy, isn't it? So there is a lot of work around that. I think it's a challenge for us. I feel it now, getting up to 45 with my body starting to complain more than it used to. I certainly feel a hard day's work more than ever before. And if you didn't have people in your business to help you with it, I wouldn't be able to fit solar PV on my own for a start. It just wouldn't be a thing. So you need to have that thought, as you say. I don't think I've ever gone through the process of having like an exit strategy, and it's probably good advice to take forward that maybe we should. But it's just that natural journey we go on as tradespeople. We've not really got that training in business to understand maybe the things we should be considering, and it comes back to what we were talking about earlier on, I suppose.
Yeah. Would you ever fully sort of step back and just leave it to the kids? And
We're on that path at the minute. So the rough structure in my business is at the moment is for me to supposedly be stepping back a little bit more in the what I call a day job to focus a bit more on the training side of what we're developing. But I find that a wrench. That process is difficult.
Stop forcing me out, you fucking.
Yeah, pretty much. But they're very much like that, running and gunning, installing stuff. They love that. They're mid-20s. They want to be up on roofs in the sunshine, fitting this kit, and some of the paperwork and admin behind it, and the sales strategies as well. They're not really au fait with that, shall we say? So it's kind of a development in our business. Do we recruit externally? Because we're very much a family business that my wife works in, me and my sons, and do we go down that route, or do we upskill them and have them step away a little bit from the installation side and recruit that? It's a tricky one at the minute. We've not fully figured that out, to be fair, but it's exciting. We're looking at it with a positivity, I suppose, that we've got this exciting opportunity with the training centre and our renewables installation business. It's just getting busier and busier. So, yeah, there's positive signs there, but I do have to focus a little bit more on the training business I've built and get that pushed forward, because that's the thing at the minute. We were talking about on the way down. In our busy schedules, there's always things that gets cut away from your week's activities that you need to be covering off, and at the minute it's the training that I'm kind of cutting out when I should really be focusing time into that. Yeah. That's just from being busy.
Yeah. So if you were to say action plan for you, is it get the kids up to speed with the sales side so that you can then step back and then do the...
That'd be the ideal, that'd be the ideal. But I'm not sure if that's fully what they want to be doing, to be honest. So it's maybe more recruiting externally to come in and look at some of that as the main core of our business, but we'll see how it goes. At the minute I'm still doing it. I'm still enjoying doing it. I love to be an electrician at the end of the day. It's what I qualified in, and I often say this on my social media content, that I'll be out being an electrician until the day I physically no longer can do it.
When your hands are
well, that's it. Whether it's 1 day or 2 days a week, I still want to be going off and doing that because I love it. I think sometimes we lose people from what I call the coalface of industry a little bit too early. We miss out on their knowledge being passed forward to other people coming in. So I do go out with the guys and work with them often.
It'd be good for the training as well, I think, if you're still
absolutely, yeah,
in there a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, being active out on the tools is a great way to pass those skills forward in the training centre. So definitely. And what you were talking about with the development of products, you innovated a product with PV Ultra, haven't you? And rather than kind of develop that as your own brand, you worked with another one. So I think that goes back to what you're saying with the installers developing this stuff. I think that's a really good way. We see a lot of that in the electrical industry. And I know Superrod work with inventors through their brand to try and innovate products as well. And you were with Doncaster Cables, weren't you?
Yeah. They did something similar, didn't they? Superrod got acquired by Klein, was it?
Yeah, I don't fully understand or know what's going on there. I think there's a distribution agreement between Superrod and Klein Tools. There's certainly something there. Malcolm Duncan, who's created the Happy Electrician community, he kind of founded Superrod and runs all of that. But I know they work with small inventors. They've got like the R1, R2 link wire that
Superrod, the ones that bought the distribution for is it Ferret?
Yeah, they've got like a super
camera.
Yeah. So they do have a camera kit. The rods is their primary product, but yeah,
everyone goes wild for them, don't they?
They do, love them.
Have you've been at a show and
I've seen super rods. I know CK have their own equivalent as well.
You're at Sandown Racecourse and everyone's like, "Boah," and you're like, "Where are they all going? Come here!" You know, onto your stand, and like all of a sudden, everyone's got these tubes, the super rod tubes. Mental, absolutely mental.
We love going and getting tools from trade shows and things.
Freebies.
Yeah. I mean, are you guys at any shows?
Heavy into shows. Yeah, we've got one.
I presume
installer. Yes. Yeah. Next one's 2 weeks' time at Ali Pali Tool Fair. Yeah, but installer is the biggest one of the year for us.
Yeah.
It's absolutely huge. We launched a new product last year there, and it just went a bit bonkers. Went a bit bonkers. And there's a video of me on social media demoing this new product to a guy, and I just sound so bored. I wasn't actually bored, though, in my defence. I was actually in pain. It was hurting to talk at that point. We just talked ourselves into the ground. We're like a sweet shop for engineers.
It's good when it's like that. I mean, have you ever thought about doing anything at the installers with the apprenticeship stuff? Or
we do. We had a stand last year for the Renewables podcast that we host, and also the Safe Isolation campaign. So Richard Cockline, who you had on the other week, he joined that campaign that we sort of started.
Because I did suggest to him, because he said, I can't remember what he was saying about the show, but I suggested getting in contact with Lucy from Installer and actually doing something around.
Already happens. So Lucy has given stand space for an installer show for the Safe Isolation community. The elect shows have as well with Professional Electrician. We get stand space there. There's a show over in Northern Ireland as well with ETT where they give us space too, and it's an opportunity to go and speak face to face with installers and ask them about their real world experiences around isolation, because unfortunately the stats around that are pretty terrible, really, and that spills into the world of plumbing and heating as well. I think that the stats was 6 people last year who had incidents at work that led to death, and they were in the heating and aircon side of things rather than just electricians. So
I think
there's the education piece there.
It was 13 in electricity.
That was the year before. Before that. So Superrod run that survey that's published. So the last one was 6, and the time before that was 13. So it is trending downwards, in fairness. I think a lot of that is the way that it's taught in colleges. That's one of the things that it's done really, really well now in education, that the importance of isolation and locking off and working dead is really emphasised. My generation, it was very much bang the back of your hand on a cable, or
it's all good.
Bang stuff out. That's what we were shown, or tape breakers off. There was none of this kind of process. I think there's a lot of electricians at my age and above who still have some of those really bad working practices that need to be kicked out of the industry, to be fair. And that's kind of the messaging that goes through that stand when we can have those conversations with people. It's amazing some of the stuff that happens. We hear of people ripping isolation locks off to turn circuits back on when they're working on big sites and stuff. And this kind of stuff, it shouldn't be happening. And there's Louise Adamson who tells the story of her brother Michael. If none of you ever seen or heard that, go off and watch it, because that leads you to locking off every single time after watching that.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of making those mistakes, and
when you're in a rush, or you just think,
it's just not worth the risk, is it? And it's we all want to get back to families and to be safe and sound and all that sort of stuff. It's but it's easy to take the wrong route, and I've taken the wrong route before on stuff like that, and you do worry that you only have to get caught out once for it to be something really serious. But I think Installsha do a good job at promoting stuff like that and giving
she's good, Lucy.
Lucy's a legend. You've had her on your podcast here. I remember watching. She did well to get her to come and talk, because she was like front and centre herself.
Well, I said to her, like, everybody, because the one thing about doing the podcast is I used to chat to so many people online, and you chat in the inbox or your DMs or whatever, but you don't really ever get to know anybody. So it was good, because I always used to talk to Lucy, and I was like, I've never actually met you because you're always so busy at this bloody show. I never see you there. And trying to get her on. And then she came on, and actually she was really good. So I was like, worked out quite well. But what we tend to do round about this time is it's a bit like a Jerry Springer final thought. So if you've got any advice, or say if you're at any of these shows and you want to promote that to people listening and watching, so people can come and see you, or they know what it's about, or little bit of information, or you might have a new product, or we're at Installer and we're launching 3 new items, whatever it is. This is your chance to sort of wax lyrical. So I'm gonna go in reverse order. I'm gonna start with you.
Thank God.
Tool Fair Alexandra Palace. We're there on the 25th and 26th. Sorry, 26th and 27th. Setup day on the 25th.
Yeah.
And launching the TAPEX Kit 3.
What can we expect from it? Can you give anything away? Or
I can tell you all about it if you want. Obviously, the TAPEX is designed to fit and help get taps off and so on, whether they be singles or monoblocks. The TAPEX Kit 3, the 2 was ultra-long sockets and more of them. The TAPEX Kit 3 is for the backnuts on basin wastes.
Right.
So if you imagine you've got your basin, you've got your pedestal, it's quite busy around the back of there with taps, overflows, waste and so on. And you can get a box-type spanner that will go inside the pedestal, and with the Tommy bar, so you stand a fair chance of knocking the pedestal. It's going to, you don't want to do that, it's going to damage it. Or a bigger adjustable, again, you could damage it. So with this little kit and the components from the TAPEX, you can do it from outside of the pedestal. So only the top section is going to be actually in there, the rest of it is going to be outside of the pedestal, so hopefully safer, less damage. So that's going to be launched at Installer, Tool Fair.
Tool Fair. Okay. And then the next one will be?
Next one after that, we have some people going up to Tool Fair in Harrogate in May.
I like Harrogate, it's a good one.
I love Harrogate, but
just because it's good for bars.
Too far away from home from me, so I'm out of that one. I'm not doing that one.
Harrogate's a nice one.
And then Install It in the summer. Don't know exactly what we're going to have ready for that, but I know what we want to have ready. Some more product launches there as well, but also some normal deals for the day.
And you'll be at Installer.
I'm definitely at Installer. There's no getting out of that one. Okay. I'd have to cancel holidays for that one.
And weddings.
Yeah, and funerals even. Yeah.
No, all good. What about you then, Mark? Is there?
We've got stand space at the Installer show again for the Safe Isolation stand and the Renewables podcast, so we'll be there. I did want to mention that there is a bit of a fundraiser we're trying to do at the minute. It's been organised by a lady called Charlotte Carter. There's an electrician who, his wife's unfortunately got stage 4 breast cancer, and they're trying to raise some money for her to go and have some treatment. There's a golf day that they're putting on later this year. If you head over to my socials, there's some information about that. They're looking to get sponsors for some of the holes to raise some money, and also people to come along and play golf and join in with the event that she's putting on. So please do go and check that one out.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like I said, we're installing a show for our little podcast about renewables, so that we'll be there. Yeah, I've not really got anything else other than that. Really,
it's a chance for you to like. I think you've done a bit before when you were talking about the pricing and stuff like that. Because some people say, if you're going to go out on your own, you need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So you don't have to say loads of this.
Yeah, I think in terms of that general advice, I think it is a bit of a repetition of what I've said before in terms of. You do this type of job, this type of career, even if you're retraining at a later age. Like I've had 2 adult learners through who have come to the industry late. We've currently got an 18-year-old apprentice, and what I say to all of them is you just got to really, if you want this to be your long-term career, no matter what stage you enter it, you've just got to really throw yourself into it. When you become a tradesperson, it kind of becomes your life to a degree. You're always thinking about it and watching social media content on it and things like that. I think you've really got to try and
immerse yourself
in it and really love it, because ultimately people are paying you for, in my case, fitting a battery or fitting solar panels or doing whatever, but they're paying for you as a person. They could get those same solar panels from Octopus, from anybody, but they're paying for you as an individual, you as a company. And so if you can put yourself across to that customer, that business, as someone that's really passionate about what you do, then you're much more likely to get more work and enjoy it.
Sell it then. It sells itself.
No, you don't. The whole sales thing side of things to business, to tradespeople is. It's so uncomfortable half the time. You kind of just want to turn up and
because most
do the
people
job
just want to know the price, don't they?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's as a company that isn't the cheapest like ourselves. We more on the higher end side.
Not on the artisan side.
Well, we try and show people our value, but it's one of those things. It's you have to work harder to give people a better job in terms of in the sales side of things. The easiest way to win work is to be the cheapest, but you can only be the cheapest so long until someone undercuts you
or you have an issue.
Yeah, and you get caught in what I call like the cheap trap, where if you're only ever known for being the cheapest, then you can never.
You can't
sell yourself on anything other than being the cheapest, because it takes forever to get rid of that and shake that. So, so it turns out.
If you're the cheapest, surely the people who are the cheapest, surely something else has to be sacrificed, like the skill set or something else like that.
Exactly. The quality you've got, you
end up with no profit again.
Yeah, a 5-day job takes 5 days. Like, you might be able to negotiate better terms on your solar panels or your boiler or your consumer unit or whatever it is that's taking you 5 days or 3 days. But if another company's taking 1 day to do it, you think, well, how the hell are they doing all of that work in that 1 day? And unfortunately, my wife absolutely nailed this with what she said, is that customers tend to believe that the cheapest price is the most accurate one, and that everybody that is above that because they just want to make more money. And actually, I think it's I
always go middle of the road.
Yeah, well, and we've spoken about this on our podcast as well, where it's like, actually we think a lot of the mis-selling in renewables is happening at the bottom end, because if you go mid-range to top range, they've got something to prove to you as to why they're like that. Whereas when you buy at the bottom end, they are in and out, and they're maybe selling you the dream as a customer to say, yeah, it'll do this, it'll look like this, it'll, we're there to support you afterwards.
There's that drawing, isn't it, where it says if you want the horse painted, and then the horse
looks
like.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I always remember that.
It's so yeah, I think it's a tricky industry as renewables at the minute, but yeah, you just got to love what you do, and don't be scared to charge what you think you're worth, and if people pay it, then happy days.
I was going to say, as a consumer, if I was to ever go down that road and get the renewables, I'll be looking at the lowest quote and asking the question, well, what's being missed? What are you doing that?
Usually the bad guys.
I think the issue is there is such, like, I've had quotes before where one's so cheap that I'll just dismiss it, but then I've got one that is so far out on the top end, and I'm like, and you look and the sort of because some people break it down and they say, I'm going to use this plasterboard, or I'm going to use this, or I'm using that. And you look and you think, well, there's no different. Like your actual labour cost is like 30% higher than somebody else that's in the middle here. And I think that's where, as a consumer, where you're trying to weigh up who do you go for. That's why I'd always go in the middle, because I just think, well, you're not the cheapest, but then you're not the most expensive. But
yeah, I mean, there's always that risk that you do get prices wrong on both the higher and the lower side. But equally, I do believe that the majority of tradespeople, certainly at my size and below, really struggle to actually price well and price accurately, because, going back to what I said before, they don't know the numbers. When I actually sat down and worked out what my company costs standing still.
Did it scare you?
Scared the hell out of me. And because I looked at what we were charging, and I'm thinking, yeah, we need to. So basically, like our labour.
Is this calculator working?
Yeah, it's like, just try it on your phone, see if it works on your phone any better. But it was one of them where I think our labour rate nearly had to double, because we were like, we're just not charging it, and that's because we'd been guided by what everyone else does. But if everyone else does the wrong thing, and you take that as what is the right thing, then you've copied basically the wrong formula. So we had to just step out and go, Jesus Christ, well, where can we save a bit of money? Because there's always somewhere that you can save a little bit. But equally, none of that stuff really shifts the dial an awful lot, unless you get in a much smaller unit or something that costs you maybe, instead of 30 grand a year, it costs you 10 or something like that. There's not an awful lot when you get to a decent size that can really save you big money. It's about how you actually charge for that and cover that in your overheads. And honestly, if people are watching this and they actually just spend an evening, that's all it took for us, and get all your bank statements for the business and have a look at what your business costs, overnight you'll pretty much change your pricing, because it's eye-opening. It really was for me.
Maybe that's something you got to do in the training as well, I think.
We've spoken about that actually with some of the brands who are working with us there, about doing some sort of business support for installers. Because there's some of the inverter manufacturers who want to come in and do sort of training days around their products, because there's an upsell there for them, and they're on about bringing specialists in from the world of business to offer a little bit back towards installers. So certainly something that can be done there. I think it's a missing piece for lots of tradespeople, and it probably seems obvious to those people who are involved with business, but we don't know what we don't know, do we?
And then you don't have Joseph Valente.
Oh, yeah.
Selling everyone the dream.
Yeah.
He's got better teeth than me, though.
Yeah, it's like anything, it's always open. When people start talking about learning business and what have you, there's kind of those negative connotations there that people are just going to take $4,000 a month off you just to tell you to make a spreadsheet and all that sort of stuff. And you don't want that. You want them to look at what you're doing wrong.
You guys are in it, so you understand it, and you can say, well, I didn't do this. And I think there's a lot of people don't want to go, oh, I made that mistake, because they don't want to feel stupid. Whereas if they just said, look, shit, I did this, do not do that, that's what you need to do, then it'd be a lot easier, I think.
You can get defensive sometimes when people tell you they're doing the wrong thing, but I think actually you just have to take that advice on board, and there isn't like a one-size-fits-all thing, but knowing what your business actually costs you, that is your baseline. Like, if you don't cover that, then you're basically installing stuff for free. And what's the point?
Yeah.
You need to be able to get charged. Yeah, and equally, I think if every trades company did that exercise and actually started pricing correctly, we would all there'd obviously be just discrepancies, but I think you wouldn't then have this massive swing in terms of we've lost jobs before where they've sold it for the cost that it costs us to buy the equipment. And I'm like, there's just no way on this earth that you're making any money out of that, unless it's fallen off the back of a van and then you've loaded it into yours and then driven to their house.
Nicked it off next door.
Yeah, nicked it off next door or something. Like, there has to be, the maths has to math, and then a lot of the time it just doesn't. And we look at some of the pricing, and all we can say to the customers when they come back and say,
just be
can
careful,
you match that? Yeah. Say, look, we wouldn't even be able to turn up and install it for anywhere near that, because the equipment costs somewhere in and around that. I'm thinking, but if they go for that, you pay your money, you take your risk, and that's kind of what we say to people is, look, we can only stand on what we do. You can only ever stand on your quality as a company. That's the only way you can ever compete, really, is your quality of service, your quality of your workmanship, and the price is the price to a degree. And if you're always too expensive, then your business won't be around. But if people are willing to pay for your expertise and your quality, then if you are middle to top end of most people's budgets, then it means that you're actually running hopefully a successful company. And that's what we've really tried to double down on. But it's still not easy when the world is in a bit of chaos and prices swing from 1 minute to the next.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say big thank you for coming in, and I wish you all the best with the training stuff.
Thank you.
And hopefully now you go away and you nail it down, get it done. And good luck with Installer, with the podcast at the show. Good luck for you at Ali Pally and also Installer, and I'll make an effort to come over and nag you and get you to give me a demo.
Sure.
So, but yeah, thank you very much for coming on, because I know everybody drives from like random places in the country to come here. So, big thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll speak to you soon.